The alien vampire princess pointed at the human and declared, "I want him as my husband." Banners of ancient vampire clans floated in the air, moving as if they were alive. This was the choosing. Once every 50 cycles, the vampire princess would select a royal partner. The choice would shape alliances, power, and survival for generations. Every noble present knew the importance of this moment. Princess Valith of Noctira sat upon her elevated throne, calm and unmoving. Her pale skin reflected the crimson light, and her long silver hair rested neatly over her shoulders. Her eyes, deep red and ancient, watched everything. She looked bored. Below her stood the candidates, vampire lords and warriors from powerful bloodlines. They were tall, sharp-featured, and confident. Many had survived wars, assassinations, and centuries of court politics. Each believed they were worthy. At the far edge of the hall, almost forgotten, stood a human. Elias Mercer adjusted his formal jacket and tried not to stare. He did not belong here. Elias was a human diplomatic escort, assigned to observe the ceremony as part of a fragile peace agreement between humanity and the vampire coalition. His job was simple: watch, listen, report, and stay invisible. So far, he was failing at the last part, though not by choice. He felt eyes on him, not hostile ones, curious ones. Humans were rare in vampire space, short-lived, physically weaker, often seen as fragile creatures who burned brightly and died quickly. Elias knew this. He had trained himself to ignore the whispers and the looks. He stood straight anyway. The ceremony began. An ancient vampire elder stepped forward, his voice carrying across the hall without effort. "Princess Valith of House Noctira," the elder said, "the bloodlines await your will. Choose the one who will stand beside you and shape our future." A general whose name inspired fear across systems. Valith listened politely. She nodded. She asked no questions. Her expression did not change. The crowd began to grow uneasy. Then slowly the princess rose from her throne. The hall fell silent. Valith stepped forward, her presence commanding without effort. Her red eyes moved across the candidates, passing over them without interest. Then she looked past them, straight to the human. Elias froze. For a brief moment he thought it was a mistake. Surely she was looking at someone behind him. He resisted the urge to turn around. She did not look away. Princess Valith raised her arm and pointed directly at Elias Mercer. "I want him," she said calmly, "as my husband." Nobles surged forward. Elders slammed staffs against the floor. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others looked furious, insulted beyond words. A human. He looked up at the princess, searching for any sign of humor. There was none. Valith's expression was calm, certain. The eldest council member stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Princess, this is unacceptable. The choosing binds blood, power, and survival. Humans are weak. Their lives are brief. Their bodies are fragile. Then you insult us all. But I believe there has been a misunderstanding." Designed for vampire physiology, the elder continued, his voice cold. "If the human fails, the choice is null. If he dies, the matter ends." "Very well," the elder said. "The human will face the trials." She studied him in silence. Elias stood quickly, unsure of the proper behavior. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," Elias replied honestly. She nodded. "Good. Fear means you understand the cost." Others would have bowed, or run, or begged. She met his eyes. "You did not. You survive impossible odds. You lose and still stand again. But I believe you will try." And somewhere deep within the ancient vampire court, something old and unchanging began to break. The first trial began at dawn. Elias Mercer stood at the edge of a vast stone platform suspended high above a crimson abyss. The air was thin and cold, filled with a low hum that made his bones vibrate. Dark towers surrounded the platform, each carved with symbols older than human civilization. Vampire guards stood motionless nearby, watching him like hunters watching prey. Across the platform, Princess Valith observed in silence. Her expression was calm, but her eyes never left Elias. An elder's voice echoed through the chamber. "The trial of blood and will begins now," the elder announced. "This test measures endurance, control, and the strength to move forward despite pain." The stone surface grew slick, covered with a dark liquid that smelled metallic. Blood. Not real blood, Elias realized. Synthetic, designed to confuse senses and trigger fear. The platform continued to tilt. Vampires were born with balance far beyond humans. This test was designed for them. Elias slipped and fell to one knee. Pain shot through his leg, but he pushed himself up. His heart raced, but he focused on breathing, on staying calm. "You may stop," a voice called from above. "Admit weakness and the trial ends." "He will fall." Elias struggled to his feet, sweat dripping down his face. His legs shook, but he remained standing. He glanced up at Valeth. She inclined her head slightly. That small gesture gave him strength. The second stage came without warning. The stone walls opened, revealing a long corridor of red light. As Elias stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply. Frost formed on the floor and walls. Cold, extreme cold. Humans were fragile in such conditions. Vampires could slow their bodies, conserve energy, and endure. Elias wrapped his arms around himself and moved forward. The corridor extended farther than his eyes could see. With each step, the cold grew worse. His fingers stiffened. His breath became shallow. He remembered training on frozen worlds, emergency drills, survival courses. Slow steps, controlled breathing. Voices began to whisper around him. "You are weak." At one point he stumbled and nearly fell. The cold clawed at his body, demanding he stop, but he did not. At last, a faint glow appeared ahead. The corridor ended. Elias stumbled out and collapsed again, barely aware of the guards lifting him. The elder spoke again, his tone less certain. "The second stage is complete." Others with growing unease. He was taken to a resting chamber where warmth slowly returned to his body. Medics checked his vitals, surprised to find him stable. Valeth arrived shortly after. "You survived," she said. "Barely," Elias replied, managing a weak smile. "That is enough," she said. Before he could respond, the alarm sounded. A deep, echoing tone rolled through the palace. The third trial had begun early. Elias was escorted to a massive open arena. Dark stone walls surrounded the space, and above them thousands of spectators watched. In the center of the arena stood a tall structure covered in glowing symbols. "The trial of instinct," the elder announced. "Face the hunter." It was not a vampire, but something engineered for combat. Tall, fast, with 4 limbs and glowing eyes. Its movements were smooth and predatory. Elias felt fear surge through him. He had no weapon. The creature lunged. Elias ran. He dodged narrowly, feeling the wind of the creature's strike pass inches from him. He rolled across the stone and scrambled to his feet. The crowd reacted loudly. "Run faster." Elias moved the opposite direction, climbing partway up the arena wall using small ledges. The crowd quieted. Elias jumped down behind the creature and grabbed a fallen metal rod from the ground. He swung with all his strength, not to strike, but to distract. The creature turned again. This time, Elias didn't run. He stood his ground. As the creature lunged, Elias rolled beneath it and struck a joint at the base of its leg. Sparks flew. The creature stumbled. Before it could recover, the arena floor shifted. Restraints rose from the stone, locking the creature in place. The elder's voice echoed, heavy with disbelief. "The third stage is complete." Elias stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard, bruised, exhausted, but alive. He looked up. Valeth was standing now. Her eyes shone with something new, respect. The elder spoke again. "The final trial will take place tomorrow night. Until then, the human will be confined for recovery." He adapts. You understand now why they fear humans. Not all vampires were willing to let a human pass the final trial, and some were already planning how to make sure he never reached it. Night fell over House Noctira like a living thing. The palace lights dimmed, casting long shadows across stone corridors that had witnessed centuries of power and blood. High above the city, the The crimson sky pulsed slowly, as if the world itself was breathing. Elias Mercer lay awake in his chamber. His body was still sore from the trials. Every movement reminded him how close he had come to failing, yet sleep refused to come. His instincts, sharpened by years of survival training, told him something was wrong. Outside his door, the guards were silent, too silent. Elias slowly sat up, listening. The low hum of palace energy systems was still there, but something else was missing. The faint rhythm of patrol steps, the distant voices, they were gone. The door slid open without a sound. 3 figures stepped inside. They moved with unnatural speed, their eyes glowing faintly red. Vampire nobles dressed in dark ceremonial armor. Their faces were cold, focused. Elias stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "This is restricted quarters," he said calmly. "You are violating palace law." "You should have failed the trials," another vampire said. "Your survival insults our bloodlines." He dove sideways as claws sliced through the air where he had stood. He rolled, grabbing a broken metal shard from the floor. The room became chaos. Elias dodged, ducked, and moved constantly. He used furniture as barriers, breaking sight lines, forcing the vampires to reposition. He could not overpower them, but he could slow them. A strike caught his shoulder, sending pain through his body. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. The window behind him cracked. Cold night air rushed in. Elias made a decision. He ran. He leapt through the shattered window and fell onto a narrow stone ledge outside the palace wall. Wind tore at his clothes as he struggled to keep his balance. The vampires followed, their movements effortless. Elias climbed downward, gripping cracks in the stone with bleeding fingers. Below him, the city stretched out, lights glowing faintly. There was nowhere to go. A shadow fell over him. A vampire reached out, claws ready. Before the strike could land, the air exploded with force. A crimson shockwave slammed into the attackers, throwing them back against the wall. Princess Valeth stood on the ledge above them. Her eyes burned bright red. Power radiated from her like heat. "Enough," she said. The attackers hesitated. "Princess," the leader said, "we act for the good of." Her grip was firm, steady. "Are you injured?" she asked. "Nothing I can't handle," Elias replied, though his shoulder throbbed badly. Guards arrived moments later, surrounding the captured attackers. Valeth turned to them. "Take them. They will answer for this." On royal grounds, the news moved faster than any official announcement. Elias was taken to a secure chamber where medics treated his wounds. Valeth remained nearby, silent and watchful. "You should not have faced them alone," she said after a moment. Elias shrugged carefully. "I didn't have a choice. I chose not to die quietly. But it will not be what tradition demands. But refusal ends the choosing. This will reveal your intentions," the elder said. "Not your thoughts, but your truth." And his resolve. When the pressure lifted, Elias fell to one knee, breathing hard. The hall was silent. Valeth stepped forward. "He did not seek power," one elder said quietly. "He did not seek immortality. Not because you are strong, but because you change what you touch." A rival vampire house, one that had backed the assassins. Valeth's jaw tightened. "They will challenge the outcome," she said, "by force." And at the center of it all stood a human who had not come to conquer, but who refused to run. The galaxy was watching now, and it was beginning to understand something important. Humanity did not need to dominate to be feared. It only needed to endure. The sky above House Noctira burned red as enemy ships filled the orbit. Dark silhouettes moved across the stars, blocking the light of distant suns. Alarms echoed through the palace, deep and steady, calling warriors to their stations. Defense towers rose from the city like ancient beasts waking from sleep. Elias Mercer stood on the highest balcony beside Princess Valeth. The wind pulled at his clothes as he looked up at the hostile fleet. He felt small, standing among beings who had lived for centuries and fought countless wars. Yet he did not step back. "They came faster than expected," Elias said. "They were waiting," Valeth replied. They hoped fear would finish what their assassins could not. Energy shields shimmered into place around the city. The council gathered behind them, faces tense. "The rival house has declared a blood challenge," the elder said. "They reject the choosing and demand combat to overturn it. You are not required to fight." "He stands with House Noctira," she declared, "as my chosen." Elias moved with the command crew not as a soldier but as a coordinator. He had spent years working with mixed-species fleets. He understood chaos. "Redirect power to the Eastern Shield," he said calmly. "They're testing for weakness." The barrier held. The officer stared at Elias, then nodded. "Understood." Elias followed, not to fight but to support. A collapsing tower trapped civilians beneath it. Elias ran toward the danger without hesitation, pulling survivors free while vampire medics followed. His hands bled. His lungs burned. He did not stop. A young vampire looked at him in disbelief. "Why risk yourself for us?" The human did not hide. The human did not flee. The human stood. At the heart of the city, the rival house's commander descended in a massive armored form. Ancient and powerful, his presence alone caused weaker minds to tremble. Valith faced him in the open plaza. "This challenge is void," she said. "You broke sacred law." The clash shook the city. Valith fought with speed and precision, but the commander was strong, older than her, fueled by rage and pride. Their battle cracked stone and sent shockwaves through the plaza. Elias watched from the edge, searching for an opening. He saw it. The commander focused entirely on Valith, confident no lesser being could threaten him. His armor drew power from a central core at his back. Elias grabbed a fallen weapon, not to attack directly but to overload. He ran. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. Every voice told him he would die. He ran anyway. As Valith was forced to one knee, the commander raised his weapon for a final strike. Elias leapt and drove the weapon into the armor's power core. The explosion threw him backward. The commander roared as his armor failed, power draining away. Valith struck once clean and final, ending the threat. The plaza fell silent. Elias lay still. Valith rushed to him, dropping to her knees. "Elias." The battle was over. Days later, the palace stood repaired, the city calm once more. The council gathered for a final time. "The challenge has failed," the elder announced. "The choosing stands." It is about choice. He had not come seeking power, yet he had found purpose, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again.